Isaac, you mentioned that you had, this is your fourth year in the business, and that you had kind of a breakthrough where you got into some consistent prospecting. Talk to us a little bit about that pivot point. What changed? What made that difference for you?
But I was really struggling with being consistent with that. I would get on the phones for a week or so, maybe set a listing with expired or something, and then I would use that as an excuse not to get back on the phones. And so this year I said, hey, I was making about $50,000, $60,000 a year. And I said, hey, at some point things have got to change. Either got to give this all and either the system works or it doesn't, or I need to find something else. So really at the beginning of this year, I kind of made that decision like, hey, I'm just going to jump in, completely commit.
It's that time. Welcome to Roadmap, how to take 3 listings a week until you're ready for more. Each week, we interview a great agent who's consistently taking several listings each month. And we have an exciting guest today. We encourage you to take notes, apply as much of the knowledge as quickly as you can, and then use the copycat principle.
Copycat principle.
That's it. Let me introduce my shy co-host from beautiful Camp Dennison, Ohio, where the horses roam, just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, Sarah Close. Welcome, Sarah.
Happy to be here. I'm excited, very excited about it.
Yes. And Sarah comes with a lot of wisdom in this area. She has a Keller Williams office or company, because they have many, many offices around Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Westchester, serves Northern Kentucky and Indiana as well. That several million people in this area, and very successful, and has a team with selling 200 homes this year is the goal. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely.
And she dials for dollars, calls expired owners around listings and sales, and is not shy about that either.
Nope.
So that's all good news. So let's welcome our guest today from Hawaii on the island of Oahu over in Kapolei. We have Isaac James. Welcome, Isaac.
Hey, Ren. Hey, Sarah. Thank you guys for having me.
Are you getting any snow over there?
A little bit on top of the mountain. That's about
actually, that's true. Yeah, on the Big Island, they have every level of climate zone there is.
Yeah.
And I understand your volcano's erupting over there. Is it Kailua?
Yeah, you're correct.
What do they call that? The goddess Pele, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think that sounds about right.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Well, mahalo for being with us here today. And we want to dive in and learn as much as we can about what you are doing to make a lot of money and live in paradise.
Yeah, it's not every day that we get to talk to someone who has a variety of things to deal with, like a volcano. So this is going to be an interesting call. So thanks again for being here, Isaac.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm honored.
So tell us a little bit about your business. So obviously in one of the most beautiful places on earth, and you probably get to sell beautiful homes there. Tell us a little bit about what your business looks like.
Yeah, so this is a closing out. This fall will be the end of year 4 for me. I guess could say if you backtrack a little bit, the first 3 years of the business were a little bit rough. I guess could say I rode the roller coaster like many agents. This year I actually was fortunate enough to have a breakout. And as you guys can predict, that was obviously due to consistent prospecting, dialing for dollars on the phone using Vulcan 7. So right now, I guess if you want to talk numbers, I looked it up just this morning. So this year so far, year to date, closed 8 units for a volume of 8 million, GCI 165,000. Have 3 units pending or 2.7 million. Volume, another 67 grand, and escrow. And then I have an active listing and a couple more listings coming up.
If you had to run the average, where do you think you'll end up the year in income and volume and such? What do you think?
I didn't do the numbers volume wise. I guess I'm probably.
What do you think you'll make in income? What do you think you'll make in income?
Income, I'll be at $250,000, right around between
250,000
and 300.
And how many years have you been prospecting since you started prospecting?
Off and on now, I'd say about 3 years. 3.5 years.
Okay. And you're up to $250,000 in Hawaii. That's not a bad living at all, because I know those houses aren't very expensive over there. What's an average listing price?
Well, I looked this up. The last month, the median single family price actually rent is $1,050,000.
Yeah.
Condos are a little bit less at $500,000.
So is that your average price, about $1 million?
Yes, sir. About $1 million.
Good. I
Wow.
love it. I love it.
It's time to go to the islands. So
I know.
that's awesome. Isaac, you mentioned that you had, this is your fourth year in the business, and that you had kind of a breakthrough where you got into some consistent prospecting. Talk to us a little bit about that pivot point. What changed? What made that difference for you?
Well, from the beginning, I was introduced to the Mike Ferry organization, their system, and he has a system that basically consists of you talk to more people via the phones, you'll get a lot of business. But I was really struggling with being consistent with that. And, of course, I heard, like a lot of people, you got to have accountability and et cetera, et cetera. But I was always, I would get on the phones for a week or so, maybe set a listing with expired or something, and then I would use that as an excuse not to get back on the phones.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year I said, hey, I was making about $50,000, $60,000 a year. And I said, hey, at some point things have got to change. Either got to give this all and either the system works or it doesn't, or I need to find something else. So really at the beginning of this year, I kind of made that decision like, hey, I'm just going to jump in, completely commit. And if it doesn't work, then maybe I need to find something else besides real estate, because it's been 4 years. But the biggest change for me was the accountability. I prospected live on Zoom every day.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, I found that it was tough for me not to show up then, because before I would do it by myself. And, it's just easy to tell yourself you do it tomorrow, next day, next week. And next thing you know, it's been a month. But having that.
You're with a group of people on Zoom. Who's in that group? I mean, generally in general terms.
Yeah, it was me and another agent here in Hawaii. More specifically because we have such a different time zone. But we prospected live every day together from 8 to about 11 o'clock, 11:30.
Okay, so accountability is a very important component.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Good. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And a quick question: the Aloha shirt you're wearing.
Well, usually. I guess to say a normal day, I'm wearing like a polo shirt or something. Me personally, I don't wear the Aloha shirts, but whenever I go to a listing appointment, I'm always dressed like this.
Okay.
So,
and that plays fine in Hawaii. Okay. I was just curious. I'm just curious because I know it's a little different world there, but so people really respect the fact that you have that much respect for the job and everything, that they respond well
absolutely
to that. Good.
I think it helps, Ren.
I think it does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think when you show up dressed professionally, especially here in Hawaii,
right.
because there is such a laid back type of culture, people really take you serious. They take you as a professional, and I think the presentation, as you know, Ren, they already judge you as soon as you show up to the door. And so when you're dressed professionally, it just makes the presentation so much easier.
You look like you work at the trust department at the bank. You're taking it very seriously. You really do. It's good. It's a wonderful thing. That's definitely that. I have to believe you get a listing or two that you wouldn't have gotten from that.
Probably so. Yes, sir.
Isaac, your business this year, you said it was obviously due to prospecting. What specific type of prospecting were you doing that's generated the transactions you've had so far? Are you calling expireds, cancels? Are you circle prospecting, database? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. That is actually one of the changes this year that was really obviously due to the market we're in. As you all know, we haven't seen a market like this for a while, maybe probably ever. So for me, it was really calling neighborhoods, letting them know, hey, what just sold, what just listed, and then just from there it was literally just cold calling, asking people, hey, are you interested in selling?
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about what you're saying when you're calling. It's none of us like to receive calls from people we don't know or aren't expecting. So how are you winning the business in your scripts? What techniques you're using, or questions, or what's working for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use a simple script that I used to say one of my coaches, I have a lot of people I would consider my coach. He gave me a 2-question script to use. And it was simply, there are not a lot of homes for sale right now, not a lot of homes available for sale right now. Have you thought about selling? Obviously, their first instinct answer is to say no. And you go, no. You go, okay, well, what if you could get a crazy number for your home? Or, what if you could sell it for more than you think it's worth? Would you consider an offer? But to, I guess, take that a step further, Sarah, because usually I do talk to a lot of agents, especially if they heard that I had little success, and they really think it's the script. My opinion is the script matters, but it's you're listening beyond the script, right? And so many of the calls like that, they may say, well, you need to talk to my husband, or I'm thinking of this or that, right? And so it's really asking the next question. And one of the mindset shifts I had was when we're calling expireds, we tend to be aggressive because they want an aggressive agent, right? So if Sarah, if you're going there and they say, hey, I have an appointment with Sarah at 9 a.m., you're like, hey, well, I'll be there at 8:30 to get the listing, right? But when you're cold calling, or you're doing your just listed or your circle prospecting, you actually need to be the opposite of that. So I might say, hey, Sarah, you're thinking of selling, at Christmas time. I got it. Well, listen, I know you're not in the market today, but why don't I just come over, take a look? Because I know a lot of sellers, they like to put money into their properties, and sometimes they can't get it back. So I'll just give you the information you need. And so that mindset is, I'm actually kind of taking it back. I'm not trying to get you to sell today. I'm just trying to get in the door so that when you are ready to sell, I'm the agent you're going to list with.
So you're bringing something of value to them. You're adding some contribution, and then they're grateful for that. And you're building some rapport, and you're working it as a lead. And
yeah, absolutely, Ren. And the reason I mentioned that is because I would say 3 or 4 of my deals this year, Ren, were people that initially told me, and I honestly believe that they were serious. They told me at the end of the year, like end of 2021, would be when they would want to do a transaction. And it's just now with October, and I've closed several of those deals already, Ren. And so it's just a matter of not, when you're cold calling, it's not pushing as much as you would with an expired, because they actually don't want the aggression just yet.
That's an excellent point. It's obviously a little bit of a finesse, if you will. Yeah. So what are you doing to stay in touch with them in a meaningful way that doesn't cause them to feel like, like you're stalking them, from the time that you make that initial offer to the time that they are ready to transact business? What does your follow-up feel like?
Gotcha. What's the follow-up? So it depends. I would love to say I have a great system. The first system I come to mind is I have what's called a folder system. And so again, Jim Chamberlain is one of the people that has taught me a lot. Is with Vulcan 7, there's ability in there, and you could do this even without Vulcan, but you just put folders. So you would put, let's say, January through December. And so let's say, like you said, we had that same conversation, Sarah, and you said, hey, Isaac, next March, I'm transferring, the military's moving me, call me in January, right? And so what I would do, I guess you could say as a system, I'll put Sarah, and I'll put some notes, Sarah moving in March, and I'll put you in my January folder. So when January comes around, I can I'll pull up my January folder, and then it'll say, call Sarah, she's moving in March, right? So that's, I guess you say, my formal system. But also it depends on the conversation we had, right? So a lot of these people were cold calls, hadn't really raised their hand saying that they wanted to sell yet. And they may say, hey, I'm thinking about this, or I'm thinking about that. And so a lot of times I would move them in the folder system, but I would literally move them to the next month. So if I talk to you in October, I'll put you in my November folder, and I'll just put your notes, thinking of doing something in the next 6 months. And then I'll put what you're looking for. And so if something comes across my plate, I'll say, hey, Sarah, I know you're not looking to do anything today, but I just saw this house that seems to look like what you wanted to buy, or, I know you wanted to sell, and this house down the street just sold at this price. Just wanted to keep you up to date with what's happening in the market so that when you're ready, you can make a move. And I found that a lot of people are welcoming of that.
I love that. And that really works when you call people with something very specific that you saw and you thought of them. I mean, the success rate with that approach is highly successful. So congratulations on that. I really like that you do that. That does work. That works well.
Absolutely. What are your goals for next year as far as your business goes? You're going to close out this year at about $250,000. What are you thinking about as far as building on what you've been able to really stabilize so successfully this year? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm actually excited about that. So I met with the wife last night and we actually had, I guess could say our goal plannings for next year. But next year, GCI, I'm looking to do 600K. And that looks at closing about 30 units, 30 transactions. And obviously that's going to be predicated on prospecting 3 hours a day, being on the phones. I don't know what next year will hold. I mean, if expires come back, I think that'll be a little bit easier. But at the same time, I really fell in love with the circle prospecting, just because when I do talk to a client, there's no competition. You know, when you call an expired, there's like 5 agents that's called and they're telling the seller that you're terrible and you're talking about your mama, right? But when you talk to a cold, quote unquote, cold person, you know that when you're circle dialing, you're the only agent that they're talking to. So it's a lot nicer conversation, and it just, I guess could say, you're the only competition. There is none really. So
that's just an aside, but how many of those are offshore? How many are absentee? What do you think?
This year, let me see here. Actually, this year I haven't had any offshore listings. I did last year, but I found that they're pretty easy as long as you have.
Most of them are living in the house full time, or maybe they're there back and forth.
Yeah. So I have well, now I think about it, I have one condo in Waikiki that's off island. I guess you say the seller off island. Yeah. But the majority of them are residents here. They live here full time.
Gotcha. All right. I was just curious whether you had a lot of absentee, because if you were spending a lot with absentee, I wanted to kind of go down that rabbit hole with you. But it sounds like they're mostly like Cincinnati, you know.
Yeah. I found
except for the weather.
Yeah, rather it's not too bad. But I found, Ren, that the absentee owners, they're a little, in my opinion, they're a little bit easier.
Okay.
They're not as, they don't, I guess could say, they don't question as much. They're not as emotionally attached, obviously, because they've already left the property. And obviously with 2020 and how 2021's been with what's happened, I found that it was easier for me to pivot wherever we needed to pivot, because I had done, some absentee owner transactions prior to. So it was very easy to do.
So they're treating it more like stock instead of their baby or whatever. So
right. Yeah. Because they've already left the property. So they don't have that emotional attachment.
Nice.
The way some other sellers might.
That makes it so much easier. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're not competing with the king or queen of the neighborhood either. So
right.
Because they're not noticing the signs in the yards and stuff like that because they're not there. Okay.
That's so true.
Good.
Yep, great point. Isaac, talk to us a little bit about your database. Do you have any specific systems that you use in your database, or ways that you communicate with your people that are part of your sphere or your past client base?
Yes, absolutely. I could do better at my database, but again, I use the folder system, but I do it every quarter instead of every month. And what I try to do is I just call, maybe give them an update on what's sold recently, what's happening with the market. Obviously this year with interest rates being so low, just kind of confirming that they refinance if I help them buy, right? But just I try to touch them at least 4 times a year. And I have maybe about 70, 80 people in my database, so not huge, but I am proud to say that, I have helped past clients buy and sell. So right. I'm excited with that because to me, it's indication that I'm at least communicating with them enough that I was able to help them buy and sell, and not someone else's, sign in their yard and I'm driving by like, what the heck, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. So is that part, when you're following up with your sphere and your database, is that part of your 3-hour call anatomy as well?
On the back end, but not up front. So, the first 2 hours are really cold call expires, withdrawals for sale by owners, old or past expires withdrawals. And then on the back end of that, I'll put in like the database calls and things like that. Or even in the evening, right? Because I guess to say they're not as much prospecting based per se. So it could even be something as simple as just a text. Hey man, thought about you,
Gotcha.
hope all is well, business is great, something like that. But as long as you're touching bases with them and communicating with them and just kind of reminding them that you're in real estate, then the business will come from them, or they'll let you know if they're thinking of doing something.
So it stays very relational as opposed to more of a, hey, this is a business call. Sounds like it's a little bit more on a person level for your business.
Yeah, it's definitely more on a personal level for me. I mean, I don't know the name of all their kids and their dogs or anything like that, but I do know if they have kids, right? So, but I guess you could say I just try to ask them, anything about real estate, and I've just found that I don't know why, but seemingly people just don't call for whatever reason. But if I call them, they'll go, oh, hey, yeah, Sarah, I was thinking about calling you. I was thinking about texting you. I wanted to ask this. And so I found that if you stay on top of it, then when they're ready to make a move, you'll be right there. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When your call session sounds like it's about 3 hours or so, how many folks are you anticipating, I guess, number one, having to reach out to, and how many contacts or two-way dialogues are you anticipating having in a particular?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. It varies. We try to hit 20 contacts per dial session. That doesn't always happen, but I made it my goal to at least be on the phone dialing for those 3 hours. Normally, I try to set up at least 200 contacts in the Vulcan 7 system, and then I'll go through that. If I make it through the full 200, then I'll do the 300, dials. And so sometimes I might go 3 hours and I might talk 3 people, 5 people. And then there's other days where I might do 2 hours and I've talked to 25 people. But for me personally, what I do is just, I try to be consistent of being on the phone for those 2.5 to 3 hours dialing. And I try not to worry as much as about the contacts because I know it's the consistency. And then also with every conversation, just making sure that if there is an appointment available, that I try to set that appointment.
Sure. Yeah, that consistency is really key, and having that target in mind of a designated time frame. So that's
how do you get yourself, because you said you weren't consistent until you got an accountability partner, and that's working well, meeting on Zoom and watching each other to hold each other accountable. But is there anything you're doing to get the morning started, a little pre-prospecting routine that gets you excited, get your energy raised to a certain level, get your focus and pulls you that way?
Oh, that's a great question, Brent. So yeah, I go surfing every morning, swim with the sharks. No, I'm just joking.
I wanted to hear that one. No, keep going.
Yeah, snorkel.
That'll get your adrenaline going, that's for sure. Yeah.
Downhill from there.
But yeah, I do work out in the mornings. Usually I'm up by 5:30. I'll read my Bible for about 30 minutes. Then after that, I'll work out. And usually while I'm working out, especially when I'm really focused, I'll be listening like to interviews. So it'll be the roadmap, or it might be some other entrepreneurs, right? Or podcasts. But I'm listening to people that either built a business bigger than myself, as far as either the technical, like how-to stuff, or I'm listening to something, more inspirational, where it's like, hey, this guy, made $2 last year, now he's making 20 million, that type of story. But I try to listen to that and relate. And then also role play, right? So usually every morning, 7 to 7:30, I either practice the listing presentation or it'll be role play. So we'll practice either the cold calling or the expire, whatever calls I'm thinking I'm doing. Or if I've had some crazy objections, we'll go over that. And then by 8 o'clock, we're on the phones dialing for dollars.
Good, good. How important is that mindset piece? If you don't go through, reading your Bible and then listening to some podcasts and if for some reason you ended up not doing that, how does that affect the rest of the process, the role play, and then all the way through to 3 hours of prospecting? Would you even do it?
Well, I would do it. For me, the biggest part is, like I said, my accountability partner. But I found, as you know, Ren, that even with that, you can be going through the motions, right?
So the energy is not there, and they feel it on the other end of the phone.
Exactly. And so if you're not intentional, you can still be talking. And I guess you know this, Ren. Like let's say you got a professional agent that's really great on the phones versus a new person that really doesn't know what they're doing. They both could spend, let's say, an hour, talk to the same 10 people, and that professional agent will walk away with 2 or 3 appointments, whereas a new agent would be like, oh, there was nothing there. I talked to 10 people, I didn't get anything. But even as a great agent, you can still find yourself kind of going through the motions if you don't have that right mindset.
Right. It's not just skill, it's skill and energy. It's not just energy, it's energy and skill. You've got to have all the elements. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's
huge. It's such and people feel it. If there's a spark inside you, they feel it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's also your energy, Ren, that grabs people more than what you're saying. It's how you're saying it,
Yeah. Right. I just like when you're talking over the phone, and if you're smiling, people know you're smiling. They can feel it.
Yeah. Makes a big difference. So Isaac, you're thinking about next year, you've got a $600,000 GCI goal.
He's skipping 500. He's going straight to 6.
Blowing right by that. So that's a big move, and that's exciting. And when you're thinking about that change for next year, what do you anticipate might be the most critical opportunity you have? Not to use the word challenge, but what do you think what needs to happen for that to work for you?
What needs to happen for that to work for me? I'd say probably just building my systems. Recently, I switched brokerages. I think it was August that I did. And so with that came the challenge of not necessarily having assistant, because the previous place, I originally was on a team for a few months, and I had the great fortune of just using that team's assistant, even though I was a solo agent. And so when I came over, I had to go through the process of hiring someone part-time and, kind of working out those bugs. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's making sure that I have the back end in place as far as taking care of the paperwork, handling the escrow, so that I could really focus on being on the phones and, prospecting, doing lead follow-up, going on appointments. That's the name of the game, but making sure that the service on the back end isn't falling apart. So I think that'll be the biggest challenge with bringing on more deals, in my opinion.
Bringing on the structure, being a good delegator with follow-up checks and balances, so you can spend 80% of your time on money-making activities.
Absolutely.
Well, you're living in paradise. You've built a great business. I love that you're making $250,000 in a short amount of time, and now you're going to 600,000 and on your way to $1 million. This is exciting, and there's a lot of good ideas in here that I think they're going to help our audience a lot. And we appreciate you taking the time to contribute. Because there are a lot of people that are looking for, how do I take 2 or 3 listings? I want to do it, and I want to do it now. And it takes a little bit of work. And it sounds like consistency, accountability, a daily routine, the mindset piece.
Yep.
The mindset piece and that pre-prospecting routine, taking you all the way to get that energy up to this level. Because some of the energy we get when we call these people is kind of counterbalancing. So we appreciate
what I really, I was to say, what I really appreciate you shared with us, Isaac, is that you had kind of a reality check where you said, do I want to do this? And you actually asked that question of yourself and confronted it and made a specific intentional change to really validate your career path. And it's so exciting to see that turn, to deliver results for you. And it's really, it's just very generous of you to share that, because I think a lot of times people do have that thought, but everyone's too afraid to say it. So thank you for sharing that. That's
a great shift. And a lot of people are maybe having that very same thought, being like, okay, I just have to step in the ring and make that commitment and trust the process.
Right. So you're
Good
awesome.
deal.
Thank you.
Good. Now, here's the thing. People want to buy a second home or maybe a first home or move to Hawaii. They're living in Butte, Montana, and they're saying it's a little chilly. And I was wondering how they could reach out to you to do some business or maybe they have a property there now and they want to sell it. And what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So obviously always happy to pay a referral fee. But yeah, they can reach me at area code 803. And yes, I've been in Hawaii for 8 years, but I've had the same phone number for almost 20 years now. So it is a area code 803-360-7145. But also you can email me, isaac.james@kw.com. Isaac is isaac.james@kw.com.
Perfect. Reach out to him and, we appreciate this. And I'm startled, Isaac, that you didn't tell him your real secret. I'm just startled. You didn't, what he does.
I'm gonna let you tell them, man.
You know what he does. He goes through, he starts out and he's reading his Bible in the morning, and then he's listening to some podcasts and watching some videos, and then he does his role play, and then he gets on the phone at 8, and somewhere around 11:30 he returns calls and goes to lunch. But no, he doesn't. He goes to the freezer and gets delicious Grater's mint chocolate chip. This is the one for listings. This is the powerhouse. You know the flavors for buyers. What is it, Sarah? What flavor is for buyers?
Rocky Road.
It's Rocky Road, yeah. But the mint chocolate chip, this is for listing. If the listing is hard to sell, you dig a hole in the front yard and bury this upside down. The listing will sell just like that. This is his secret. And you can go to graters.com and find the mint chocolate chip at a store near you. All over North America, including Hawaii and Alaska, Anchorage, on and beyond there. So, and the Big Island. We appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you for contributing. Thank you, Sarah and Camp Dennison. And we'll see everybody next week.
Isaac, have a great week. Thanks for being here.
You too, Sarah. Thank you, Rand.
All right.
Thanks,
Isaac.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.